It's been about 60 days since our last video, but considering it was about 170 days between our first two videos, I'd say we're heading in the right direction. Cue the intro.
We're live.
Started.
I'm so awkward. If this is your first time tuning in, we're currently on a journey to trade from a flash drive all the way up to our $131,000 of student loan debt. If you haven't seen our last video, we recommend checking that one out first to see how we got to an Apple HomePod and the infamous lawnmower.
We weren't really sure what our plan with the HomePod and the lawnmower was, but we knew one thing was that if we tried to trade them together, it would be really difficult, and so our project had its first split. This allowed for both of us to trade a different item at the same time, which really sped up our process. The lawnmower needed a little cleanup before it was ready for trade, and not long after, we had exactly that. Soon after that, we had exactly that.
We found somebody selling an Apple mouse and keyboard that we figured would pair well with the Apple HomePod, and they're actually interested in the lawnmower. The only problem was that they agreed to sell the mouse and the keyboard before we got to them. So we quickly dug into their profile to see what other hobbies they were interested in, and we saw that they were a photographer. When they asked us if there was anything else we'd be interested in trading the lawnmower for, we had the bait that we needed and said camera lenses.
Camera lenses.
It just so happens that they had 2 spare lenses sitting around collecting dust.
We're not sure why in that moment our motivation was so focused on getting back to a singular bundle, but our vision was clear. We had to trade now the Apple HomePod for a DSLR camera bundle. We reached out to somewhere north of 500 people selling anywhere from Canons to Nikons to Sonys in hopes that they would trade for our HomePod. And it wasn't until we had pushed our radius out as far south as New Jersey, we had found somebody who absolutely loved Apple HomePods. And it just so happens they hadn't touched their Canon bundle in months.
Our first trade via mail.
That's just in. Our first trade via mail.
Our first trade via mail was sent, and we were just about ready to trade our new created camera bundle. We just had one small hiccup because 2 of our lenses were pretty much identical in the bundle. Luckily, it didn't take long to find somebody interested in flipping a lens. What unfolded next was arguably one of the craziest moments of our entire trading project.
It took us well over a month to orchestrate 3 trades to go from the Apple HomePod and the lawnmower to the full new Canon bundle that we had. And while there was about a 2-day waiting period between when we agreed upon the last lens swap to it actually happening, we began looking for our next item. It had been a full month of knowing exactly what we wanted to trade for, but now we were back in a mystery, trying to trade with a $600 camera bundle.
Remember when we said we messaged over 500 people for the main piece of our camera bundle? Well, somehow the next trade only took 5 messages, and we even had to tell them that we didn't even have the last item in hand yet. But after only a few patient days of waiting, we had our 9th trade locked in, a $150 jump to an almost brand new Segway electric scooter. And I know what you're thinking, but no, it's not that type of Segway, but it's still pretty damn fun.
This nearly zero effort swap wasn't even the crazy part we were alluding to though. While waiting for the lens swap and the scooter trade to happen over the course of a week, we had networked with somebody out in Utah who's been trading without really publicly documenting any of it for the last few years. And we jumped on the phone and chatted for over 2 hours sharing tips and stories.
The biggest takeaway for us though was that there was a better way to trade. Get the offers sent to us instead of reaching out to other people. Up until this point, all 9 of our trades happened because we willed them into existence, messaging anywhere from 5 to 500 people. But the idea of offers coming to us was completely foreign.
That's not to say we hadn't been posting our items on Marketplace, a few on Craigslist, a few on OfferUp and LetGo, but the interest was just non-existent. What we didn't know was it was simple as making the item free. I know what you're thinking. When posting it as free, that means most of the messages we're getting are from people who think it's actually free. And while you're not completely wrong, what's actually happening is it's boosting our posts, much like a video that's doing well on YouTube's homepage, and that's getting into the right people's hands, and that's when the offers do start to come in. Also, we spelled out our trading intentions pretty clearly in the item description, so people started to catch on what we were looking for.
Within 3 days, we had a few great offers, notably an old snowmobile heading right into a New England winter, an off-road electric skateboard worth well over $1,000, but our best offer was something completely different.
If there's one thing New England, and specifically Boston, is known for, it's coffee. I mean, Boston is literally called Beantown, and coffee is king here. Everywhere you look, there's a Dunkin'. Even in the suburbs, when we take our dog to daycare, we pass 3, and it's only 3 miles away. And when you receive an offer for an item valued at 3 times the current item that you have, centered around the most beloved item in your city, how do you say no? Man, I wish I could say no to myself back in September.
So on Labor Day of 2020, we set out and drove over an hour to a food and beverage dispenser to make our next trade, a commercial cappuccino and hot beverage dispenser. This wasn't your typical countertop Nespresso. This was a full-size, 150-pound commercial-grade machine that you'd see in a college dining hall or hotel lobby. We had so many ideas, so many businesses to message, and so much optimism around this machine. And it was worth over $2,000 and meant for a business who surely had the means to trade.
To this day, we're still unsure if our hypothesis about trading with a business holds up, but in that moment, we took one worldly hurdle for granted.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S.
Almost 100,000 small businesses permanently closed since the pandemic.
According to figures from Johns Hopkins University, COVID-19 deaths have passed the 3 million mark.
Turns out when there's a global pandemic and everybody's working from home, office amenities are not an attractive commodity.
We emailed hundreds of businesses, including every ski mountain within a 4-hour radius, snowboard shops, startup consumer companies, motorsports, mechanics, hotels, and even construction companies, most of which never even had the audacity to respond to us. But what about our new listing strategy on Marketplace that turned in all those offers for the scooter? Turns out that only really works for consumer items, and the offers only really trickled in, most of which valued our item at maybe $1,000 or less, and we were stubborn to trade for at a $2,000 value at that time.
We did have 2 leads though. The first, a local bike shop hoping to entice customers with hot beverages looking for a new commuter. But the unit needed a dedicated water line. No, nope, we're not saying that, nope.
Damn. The other lead, which persisted for about a month, was extremely unique. A couple who formerly ran a horseback riding ranch had a surplus of gear they were willing to trade with us, and they didn't even balk at our evaluation. They wanted to start a mobile coffee shop, and they thought our unit was a great start for that business. The only issue was that the gear was located in Chicago, and they only visited Boston pretty infrequently. It became clear that that trade wasn't going to manifest, and for the sake of getting going again, we had to stomach a value drop.
Ironically, we'd been checking in with the local farmers market on a weekly basis for the entirety of having our coffee machine, but we weren't sure they'd have anything to trade us. They offered for us to come check out some old equipment, but our interest in trading for another commercial unit was fading rapidly. After 2 months of not trading, coming off of 2 trades in 4 days, we were just about ready to compromise.
We reached back out to the farmers market and asked them what was the best cash offer they could do, and they said it was $500. This was a brutal blow from the $750 scooter we had 2 months ago and the internal valuation we had for $2,000 for that unit. We immediately found an item on Marketplace that we had success with prior, another Canon DSLR camera valued at $500. We attempted to organize a handoff between us with the coffee maker, the farmer's market with the cash, and the person with the camera, so the cash never came in our possession, but that proved to be too difficult to organize.
It was in that moment that we realized that this project can evolve into whatever we want it to. And selling an item wasn't against our policies of trading. So we made the swap over the course of the 2 days, and we were back in the game with our second Canon, but definitely not our last. But we'll save that story for the next video.
Thanks again for tuning in, and hopefully it won't be 60 days till the next video.